Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're diving into a massive, literal game changer regarding a resource we all use every single day. We usually think of our global water shortages as just, well, nature running dry, right? Like it's just an inevitable byproduct of a warming planet that we have to adapt to. But actually, scratch that. The reality is way more complex and honestly, a lot more empowering. What we're really looking at here is a human-driven bankruptcy. So let's dig into the latest data, satellite imagery, and global research to figure out exactly how we got here, and more importantly, how human decisions can turn this whole thing around.
To really grasp the scale of this, let's look at a staggering number: 250 million. That is the devastating number of hours that women and girls around the globe spend every single day walking an average of 6 kilometers just to collect water. I mean, imagine that. Starting before the sun even comes up, trekking across dry earth and lugging 44 pounds of water all the way back home. This isn't just some abstract stat on a page, it's a daily reality. It literally represents time stolen from getting an education, from earning an income, and from just living. So this water issue isn't just about dry rivers, it's a massive physical burden carried by hundreds of millions of people.
And that immense human toll is exactly why, in January 2026, the United Nations completely changed how they talk about this. They actually abandoned the word crisis altogether because it just wasn't cutting it anymore. Instead, they rolled out this absolutely crucial new term: water bankruptcy. This describes a condition where the damage to our critical water systems just can't be reversed on human timescales. Basins won't bounce back, and glaciers aren't going to just regrow. But here's the most critical part of that definition. This bankruptcy is driven overwhelmingly by human decisions and behavior. The spotlight is now totally on human governance.
Section 1. The Invisible Underground Crisis: What NASA Satellites Reveal.
Let's zoom out to a planetary scale for a second. Thanks to 22 years of incredible satellite data from NASA, we can actually see the invisible forces driving this bankruptcy right beneath our feet. Comprehensive research out of UC Santa Barbara looked at nearly 1,700 aquifers worldwide. And the results? A massive 71% of the world's major aquifers are in long-term decline. And it's not a slow, steady leak either. Researchers found this decline has literally accelerated since the year 2000. As climate change brings more surface droughts, we're aggressively pumping out this invisible underground water, draining in mere decades what took the Earth thousands of years to fill.
And here is a stunning, completely counterintuitive fact discovered in 2025. All this aggressive pumping of underground water for our farms and cities, it is literally pushing the oceans higher, faster than the melting polar ice sheets. No way, right? But it's true. We are pulling ancient water up out of the ground, using it, and eventually it flows right out to sea. It's wild to realize that the groundwater disappearing from beneath our feet is directly feeding rising global tides.
I think Dr. Rishikesh Chandanporkar, the lead researcher on that study, hit the nail on the head. He perfectly framed it by saying glaciers and deep groundwater are sort of ancient trust funds. Instead of using them only in times of need, we are taking them for granted. We are thoughtlessly spending humanity's ancient inheritance, and there is absolutely no replacement generation of water in sight. We're exhausting the exact reserves that are supposed to save us when things get truly desperate.
Section 2. The Human Cost of Water. Who pays the price?
So, we really need to look at who is left standing on the front lines while this global trust fund gets drained. 2.1 billion people. That is 1 in 4 people on this planet who lack access to safely managed water. And this burden falls incredibly heavily on folks who are already vulnerable. Take places like the Central African Republic and Chad. An astonishing 94% of the population there lacks safe drinking water. And because women and girls are disproportionately tasked with fetching it, this scarcity literally forces them out of schools and out of the workforce. It makes water scarcity so much more than a public health issue. It is a profound feminist and structural crisis.
Section 3. Who owns the water? The privatization debate.
If the world's fresh water is vanishing, we have to confront a pretty uncomfortable reality. Who exactly owns the pipes, the reservoirs, and ultimately the profits? Water is obviously the most basic of all human needs, but it's rapidly becoming a traded commodity, and relying on private water utilities actually costs consumers about 59% more than publicly owned systems. When water turns into a commodity, people who can't pay that market price end up paying a very different kind of price when it comes to their access and their health.
We're seeing the fallout from this dynamic all over the world. Down in São Paulo, Brazil, privatizing their utility led to quiet rationing during a severe drought, and that predominantly hit the low-income periphery way harder than the wealthy districts. Over in the US, we're seeing the sheer corporate scale of this with a massive $63 billion mega merger of two private water companies currently in the works. And then look at the Colorado River. Outdated agreements from way back in 1922 allocated far more water than reliably exists today. So we have sharing agreements for a river that simply doesn't flow at those historic volumes anymore.
Section 4. The power of human decisions, closing the gap in political will.
But here is the empowering turning point in all of this. Because human behavior caused this bankruptcy, human decisions and coordination can absolutely cure it. Now, we know we need an immense $6.7 trillion in global water infrastructure investment by 2030. That's a huge number. But you know what? The real gap isn't technical. It's not a lack of know-how or technology. It is entirely a gap in political will. It's a gap in who holds the power to decide who gets water and who doesn't.
And that political reality brings us straight to the World Bank's incredibly straightforward three-part strategy to stabilize global water systems. Step 1, manage demand more efficiently. Step 2, expand alternative supply. And Step 3, ensure fair allocation. I mean, it sounds simple enough, right? But to actually execute it, we have to prioritize human survival and fair governance over isolated economic returns.
The good news is we already have incredible prototypes of hope worldwide where everyday people are putting this into action right now. Over in Malawi, installing simple solar water pumps has allowed farmers to get 2 harvests a year during massive droughts, literally creating food security out of hunger. In Vietnam, international partnerships are successfully bringing clean water infrastructure to the poorest provinces. And up in Canada, Indigenous activists organized for years and actually succeeded in protecting their ancestral water from corporate extraction. These stories prove that when the will to act is there, communities absolutely can protect their water.
So, we have to remember, continental drying is not some inevitable fate. Right now, the world needlessly loses 324 billion cubic meters of fresh water every single year. Just to put that into perspective, that is enough water to supply 280 million people. It's just lost to poor policies on a resource that has zero backup plan. But that means smarter management, better reallocation, and treating water as a shared human inheritance can genuinely reverse this trend.
I want to leave you with a final provocative thought. The Earth is not running out of water. We are running out of the decisions that keep it here. The data clearly shows us that the solutions are out there and community prototypes are already working. But to scale them up, we have to answer the oldest, most consequential question of the 21st century. Who decides who gets water? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, and I'll catch you next time.